You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome on into Toronto Sports Rush for the Bet Rivers Network. It is McGuire Mondays. That means we have Pierre McGuire. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks. And Pierre, we just were talking about it. We're fresh off of a huge Leafs win, their first regulation win since November 5th, and it was a blowout 7-2 against the Pittsburgh Penguins, something that it felt like they really needed for their confidence. But really, when you look at the box score, you look at the game and how it all played out, what's really your biggest takeaway about how the Leafs looked on Saturday?
The bigger guys that they need to play a pile driver kind of a game, ground and pound, whether it's Nick Roy, whether it's Dakota Joshua, Max Domi, Matthew Nyes, the bigger guys that have to pulverize people, Julie, they actually did that on Saturday. So I thought that was actually a good piece of news playing against Pittsburgh. That's about as poorly as I've seen the Pittsburgh Penguins play in their own zone. I think that's a byproduct of the Leafs forecheck game. I think it's a byproduct of Pittsburgh maybe losing track of where they are in the season. And they're a young team that I think has a real hard time playing against a ground and pound kind of a team. So more positive than negative for Toronto. They just have to keep that up now.
Right. And those guys that you mentioned off the top, Dakota Joshua, Max Domi, two guys that on this road trip have been healthy scratched. And especially for Max Domi coming back after having not played the game against the Capitals where he was in the press box, and Dakota Joshua was in the press box for the Columbus Blue Jackets game. In what way do you think that being healthy scratched, or maybe not, maybe it didn't have an effect, but did it have an effect on their game, do you think?
Oh, I do. I think it does because it creates urgency. The only way you can really punish a player in today's NHL, because most of these guys require waivers to get sent to the American League, is to take away their ice time. And there's two ways of doing it. One, embarrass them in the middle of a game and bench them, which I'm not sure always works, because then you make it personal. And the other one is just say, you know what, I don't think you got it going on right now, so I'm going to let you go upstairs and watch, and you're going to report back to me what you saw, what you didn't see, what we can do better as a group. So you make it more of a positive experience. Now, every coach has their different ways of doing business. I guarantee you mine was different than maybe some other guys was, and a lot of people maybe were different than what I did. But you've got to create more of a, I think in today's NHL in particular with the younger players, Julie, and you're around it a lot too. If you beat them up and make it a personal thing, I think you're going to lose the player. Whereas back in the day, you could create that kind of hostile environment and guys would thrive and maybe even enjoy it. That doesn't happen anymore, or very seldom.
So when they're in the press box, I liked what you said, that you give them sort of an activity, a job. Help us by being up there and using your eyes to be able to watch the game from that vantage point. We do know that there are coaches and scouts that also help the team do this as well. But maybe take me through what you think the mind of the player is in that moment when they are sitting up there, they're eating some popcorn, they're around all the media, everyone's kind of watching them a bit, and they're not on the ice playing in the game that they can play in because they're not injured. How is that feeling?
Oh, it can't feel good. I'll tell you that. Because you're not getting paid to sit in the stands, you're getting paid to play. But I think the biggest thing now with a lot of these guys, again, I think it's really important to talk about, is you give them a little assignment and see if they're going to thrive doing that assignment. And for the player, I think more than anything, it's like, okay, you took me out. You're never doing this again. Because when I get back in the lineup, I am going to kick the door down and it's never going to be closed behind me again. I'm never sitting out. So that's kind of what you hope the message is, and you kind of hope the player responds with. But I would think now, and if I had to do it over, like if I were back coaching, one of the things I'd do is I'd make it more of a positive thing than a negative thing. I wouldn't want to alienate the player. I know that I did sometimes with certain guys where I was really hard on them, and I look back at it now, I got the results that I wanted, but I'm not sure they were long-term results. I got short-term results. With one player in particular, I got really long-term results. But again, I don't think that that's the healthiest way of doing it. I think it's better to create more of a positive environment around it.
Do you think maybe that the situation, the environment that we're in right now with social media and the fact that everyone in the world knows when you are healthy scratched, and then that makes its way onto your Instagram, your Twitter, your Facebook, TikTok, wherever your friends and family are calling you. Like it's so much more pronounced that maybe the embarrassment that they feel, just even if nothing is said, just being up there. Do you think maybe that is potentially why it could be more detrimental if it was under negative circumstances versus what you just mentioned, having them have like an activity to do versus when you were scratching guys?
I love what you just said. I think it's so appropriate and so spot on. It really, more coaches need to pay attention to this. And I think a lot of them are. The social media part of this whole thing is really tough. It's nasty. And I get it. People are allowed, look, it's a part of life. It is now an accepted part of life. It doesn't mean it's right. And it doesn't mean you can just continually assault people through words, where half of the people doing the vicious takedowns don't even know what these guys are going through. That's fine. I get it. I tell players all the time when I talk to them or coaches, don't take it personal. These people don't even know who you are, and if they did, they might backtrack, and it's just one of those things. But I do think you need to be, as an organization, sensitive to what's going on. And in some marketplaces, it's more harsh than others. Toronto, I think, is a harsh place. Montreal is an amazingly harsh place. Michael Matheson, I've said this a million times, Julie, and I mean this as a compliment to Toronto and to John Tavares and to Michael Matheson in Montreal. Before Michael signed his long-term agreement, you should have seen some of the terrible stuff that was written about him online. Just terrible. This is a guy who's married. His wife played in the Olympics. They've got children living in the West Island of Montreal. They're an amazing family unit. They're great people. He's a college graduate, like the whole deal. This guy's got it going on. He's special. And I kept saying all the time, this reminds me, he's the Canadians' version of John Tavares. Johnny Tavares wanted to be a Leaf his whole life. Michael Matheson wanted to be a Canadian his whole life. John Tavares signed a long-term deal to go play in Toronto and then gave up his captaincy and took less money to sign another extension to stay in Toronto. I respect that so much. And look who the most consistent player is for Toronto right now. John Tavares. You do that. Michael Matheson's the Montreal version of John Tavares. He just signed a 5-year extension at way less money than what he could have got on the open market because he wants to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I wish when people were writing all these nasty things, they would consider that.
Right.
They would like John Tavares has been unbelievable for Toronto, Julie. He's been unbelievable. My biggest concern for Toronto now is they got to get Auston Matthews going full time. They got to keep Nyes hot, and Johnny T needs more support on the wings. And Willie, when Willie's 100% and he's back at 100%, they need Willie going. Like, he's going to have to start to eat up a lot of those points that Marner was getting last year. He has to. It's
right.
really important.
We know that he was out with an illness during this weekend, William Nylander, that is. And also, to your point, Sam Montembeault said that he got rid of his Instagram because he just couldn't deal with the negativity. It really does get to you mentally. I can only imagine at that point. So just looking at all the different things that this team needs to do, Matthews scores wrist shot, which he had used a lot in that year when he had scored 69 goals. He hasn't as much. Maybe and he also hasn't been shooting as much either. Obviously, we know he's been injured and he also has some kind of long-term, potentially lingering injury that none of us really understand or know about. But how do you get a guy like that to try to get back to the way he was playing? Or is that an anomaly and that maybe isn't what we should expect?
No, I don't think it's an anomaly at all. I remember when Donnie Granato was coaching the U.S. National Team Development Program, and I was at NBC, and I did a lot back in those days. Detroit were on NBC a lot just because they were one of the elite teams in the National Hockey League. And I remember Donnie once saying to me, "Hey, could you come spend the day with us in Ann Arbor and watch some tape?" I said, "Be my honor, be my pleasure." So I did. And we were going over all these different players. And one of the guys was this 15-year-old kid who was about to become 16. And I'm watching him, I'm going, this guy's really good. This guy's really good. Where's this guy from? He said, well, he's actually from Scottsdale, Arizona. And I said, that guy looks like Ronnie Francis, but a better skater and a guy that might produce more offense because his shot, even at that age, was so lethal it stood out. It ended up being Auston Matthews. And I'm just telling you, Julia, that's a first real exposure I had to Auston in that kind of an environment. And I watched them practice that afternoon after I spent the morning watching tape with the coaches at USA Hockey. I'm like, whoa, this guy's really good. This guy's really good. One of the things I would try to do as a staff, I try to show him all the things that he did. It wouldn't be long, 3-minute tape, and show him this is what you used to do when you were dominating offensively. And we kind of need to get you back to that point. And I don't know what the injury is. You don't know. It's not smart to play doctor in this type of environment, but they need him back to what he was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. That's what they need him to be back to.
Right. And to that point, what kind of tape would you show the guys that are his supporting cast in order to be able to activate him to that level?
Well, forecheck for Matthew in particular, Matthew Nyes, I think really important that he establish forecheck. When he's forechecking and using his size and his speed, he makes a big difference for everybody. If Bobby McMahon gets a chance to be up there or if Willie gets a chance to be up there, it's really important that you get to your role. Like Willie's so darn creative and so gifted. He's amazingly gifted. And I know people are getting after him a little bit too, but his offensive gifts are uncanny. They're amazing. You don't teach the stuff that he does. That comes from a higher being. It really does. But I think right now for the entire team, spend less time in your own zone, easier, cleaner breakouts. We talk about this all the time, but getting everybody to play to their identity. I'm watching the Dallas Stars last night. I use them as an example. The two best goal differential teams in the league right now are Colorado plus 48 and Dallas plus 22. And I'm watching Dallas and I'm going, he knows his role. He knows his role. Esa Lindell, go watch Esa Lindell. He played almost 26 minutes last night. He knows his role. He doesn't need points. He's a shutdown defenseman. But watch them come out of their own zone. They hardly spend any time in their own zone because it's tape to tape to tape to out. It's not ringing around the boards. It's none of that stuff. And I think Toronto needs to get better because once that becomes a cleaner part of their game, then those skill forwards like Willie and Auston and Matthew and Johnny, their game becomes more pronounced in a positive way.
Right. Their defensive zone coverage has been, it just hasn't really improved even with the 7-2 win. And so I think exactly what you're saying. Let's just I really want to touch on goalie situation. Sure. Dennis Hildeby was in goal. He gets his first win as a Leaf, only just his fourth win as an NHL goaltender. He's had to take on so much more responsibility than we imagined with Stolarz being out. Him and Joseph Woll, are they a tandem that you think could be enough for the Leafs this year?
Probably not. I really think they need Anthony Stolarz back. And I think Dennis Hildeby will eventually become one of those guys, but I don't think they're yet. And in terms of Joe Woll, I think it's a lot to ask for him to have missed this much time to come in and carry the mail right away by himself. The Stolarz injury is pretty significant. And I know he wasn't playing. I get it. He wasn't playing like he was last year. I totally understand that part of it. But he's got the potential to get it back quicker than maybe some people want to say. I think they met the guy that, unfortunately, I don't know how long he's out, but they miss Chris Tanev a lot. Like it's a pronounced loss to their lineup. And I even think they miss Marshall Rafai. Marshall got hurt in the preseason. I think Marshall was about to have a big breakout, and it hasn't happened yet. I think if you were to ask me if there's a shopping list that Toronto needs to pursue, puck-moving defenseman, which you know how long we've been talking about that. You said
that last year too.
It's a part of it, right? It's a big part. And the other part with the team-building exercise, I think they need another top six forward. I really do.
Right. Okay. And we did see one guy who's solidified himself in a way in that top six is Easton Cowan, who looks just like he fits in. He's 20 years old. Confidence. Him and Willie on an incredible goal that they shared. Really, he looks like he's bound for greatness on this team.
Oh, I love that. So true. and you're not playing favorites. The fact is, it's been a slow transition for him, and I think part of that was just, okay, you're a young guy, we're an established team, you sit in the back and wait your turn. Well, that's all gone now, and Easton's vision is really good. His peripheral vision's phenomenal. He's very comfortable with the puck in very difficult situations. I like that part of his game. He's not afraid to challenge people one-on-one. I like that part of his game. He can clearly shoot the puck, especially in a confined area, which is really important as an undersized guy. There's a lot to like there. So that's one of the parts of the solution. I think the other part is you're probably going to have to go outside the organization to find that other top 6 guy.
Right. Okay, so going forward, they take on Florida, who has also been floundering, and they are facing them Tuesday night. What are 3 things you want to see from this team so that we know that it's not just a confidence-building win, but it's actually a tangibly positive building win that they are, quote unquote, turning things around?
You got to be prepared to match the street fight mentality of the Florida Panthers, especially with all the injuries Florida has now. It's never been more pronounced. The only way they're going to have a chance to get themselves back in the race, talking about Florida, is to play with a certain, bite to their game. So Toronto's got to be prepared to match that intensity level, and they also have to be prepared to outsmart them. The guile of this team in Toronto is their ability to dominate the puck when they're really good, like they were against Pittsburgh. They made the Pittsburgh Penguins look bad. And the reason they made them look bad is they dominated them in the offensive zone. And I watched the entire game. I had just come back from Europe, and I'm going, man, Pittsburgh not even in this thing. They're not even in this thing. And you could see why they weren't in the thing. They weren't in the thing because the Toronto Maple, I was going to call them the Blue Jays, Toronto Maple Leafs, pile driving on the forecheck, dominating on the cycle, incorporating their defense into the offense. All those things are what you want to see when you go to Florida. They're all the things you want to see.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And okay, so 2 questions I want to ask you that are outside of the Leafs situation, but for Team Canada, as we know that the Milan Cortina Olympics are fast approaching, Connor Bedard factored in on 4 of his team's 5 unanswered goals. Again, as Chicago rallied to beat Anaheim, he's had 5 games with 4+ points, and he now is tied with Macklin Celebrini, 37 points. In 26 games, they both are tied for the second highest point total this season. If I was to say to you right now, Bedard and Celebrini, are they on Team Canada?
I'd say they've opened the door for themselves, and they still have about a 10-day period of a runway where they got to figure it out. And if they do, then I think they got a legitimate chance. I've been really impressed by Macklin all season long. I think the consistency factor for Macklin's been huge. Chicago's got about a 2-year advantage on their rebuild over San Jose, and that's why they are where they are, and that's why they're both pretty similar in the standings, depending on the night. But I'd say both of them have given themselves a fighting chance to be part of this team, which I would never have said at the beginning of the year. No way. The other guy, and we just saw him because Toronto played against Washington, Tommy Wilson's got to be in the discussion. So it depends on what they're looking for, but I think you'll see probably 3 to 5 different players from the 4 nations last year for Canada than what you saw last spring with Team Canada in the 4 nations.
And we saw some of those holes when they were playing. We definitely noticed the absence of someone like Tom Wilson. Last question, Scott Wedgwood. You mentioned Colorado. And he has started the season 13-1-3 with a 2.0 goals against average, .920 save percentage. And Martin Brodeur said that he thinks he deserves to be on Team Canada. What do you think?
I agree with Marty. I'll never ever debate Marty. I've known Marty since he's been 16 years old. Tried to get him to play for me in college at St. Lawrence University. Big fan of the person, big fan of the player. And he did something that very few people did, 10 straight years of over 60+ starts. That's never happening again. That's just crazy stuff. Marty knows what he's talking about. The 2 Woods, Blackwood and Wedgwood, both of them in Colorado have been unbelievable. What they did to rebuild their goaltending situation on the fly last year is amazing. So, yeah, I do think. Yeah, I think Logan Thompson's got a legitimate chance too. I really do. I'd be shocked if Sam Montembeault were on the team, even though I watched Montembeault the other night in Vegas and I thought he played extremely well. but I think it's too little too late for him. The other guy to watch is Darcy Kemper in LA. Darcy's had a real good start to the year and has played really well. So it's going to be, I think Jordan Binnington's played his way into the confidence of the coaching staff. So I'd be surprised if he weren't on there. So it leaves 2 more spots. And so I would say that, it's going to be interesting to see the 3 names that I just gave you, Kemper and Thompson in particular. I think those 2 guys are probably fighting it out for 1 spot.
Yeah, very interesting. And also to your point, Marty agrees with you on the Binner situation, Jordan Binnington. He said he told him, I guess when they were playing golf last year, that you can't worry about stats because sometimes numbers don't show the whole picture because you're at the mercy of your environment, which is extremely true for a goaltender.
Yeah, I just want to build off that for 1 second because there's a Toronto tie-in. I will never forget at the 2002 Olympics, Curtis Joseph was a starting goalie for Canada in Salt Lake City, and he was outstanding as a Leaf. He was really, really good. And what I remember the most is he had a really tough first game. And I remember going out for dinner with a bunch of hockey people, and the dinner got uncomfortable. It did, because some of us were saying, it's not about the numbers now, it's about who's going to give him the best chance to win. And eventually Marty went in and replaced Curtis, and that rest was history. Marty ended up being the starting goalie for the gold medal winning Team Canada that got embarrassed in 1998 over in Nagano. And that kind of set things up in a good way. But I will never forget that. And so Marty knows. And then to play it forward, go to 2010, Marty's the goalie and has a little bit of a problem and a foible. And all of a sudden, Roberto Luongo comes in and stabilizes the situation. So Marty's had it happen to him on both sides of the ledger. And so I think he's a really good voice to talk to when it comes to that.
Yeah. Not much of a runway when it comes to Team Canada or to anywhere in an international format, especially when you're in the Olympics. And we know that there's not much of a runway for teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are trying to get themselves out of that Eastern Conference basement as they've won 2 of their last 3 on the road. They'll look to extend that when they take on the Florida Panthers on Tuesday. We'll have to see if they're turning things around or if they are still mired in a very difficult situation. Both can be true at this point in this season right now. Pierre, McGuire, thank you so much for all your insight and analysis on this McGuire Monday. And guys, make sure to like, subscribe, share this episode. We always appreciate all of your feedback and comments. So we'll see you next time for McGuire Monday.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.